Hi everyone, and welcome to part 1 of starting a soap making business in the UK. I started soap making during lockdown in 2021. After getting some amazing results, I wanted to try and turn it into a small business, or at least a hobby that pays for itself. I joined some Facebook groups and quickly realised it wouldn't be as straightforward as I'd hoped. I had assumed I could just label them correctly and sell them, at least to family and friends. But no, you have to get the recipe assessed and then registered on the portal. I may have been really naive going into the process, but I want to provide a real inside look at how to start selling soap legally in the UK. Step 1 is to test your recipes and decide which soaps or variations you want to assess. An important part of this is to ensure that the recipes will pass assessment, for example, using a limited number of additives to your base soap. My examples tend to be a base soap plus a fragrance oil and up to 4 colours. I had to adapt a few of my recipes, making sure that melt and pour isn't used for embeds, and making sure that none of my soap resembles food, which is a big no-no in the UK and makes me jealous of creators from elsewhere. Step 2 was finding the provider for my assessments. I basically googled it, looked on my Facebook groups for recommendations and weighed up the options. Quite a few of them seemed similar, so I emailed 3 and only one actually replied to me, so I went with them. I found that many of the assessment providers offered a kind of group deal for 6 soap variations, so that was my goal. I did find it quite hard narrowing down my favourites, but with some input from friends and family, I have finally made my selection. The quotes for assessing 6 soap variations all seem to be around £160 to £180. Some were a little less and some were a little more, but I'd say £180 is what I would expect to pay. So once you know which soaps you're putting through to assessment and where you're going to send them, step 3 is actually sending the recipe for assessment. For the base recipe, you'd have to include any water that you use, any lye, and all the oils. I had to provide them in grams, but I've heard that some people do it in percentages, so it really depends on which assessor you've gone with. Then for each variation, I've had to provide which fragrance oil I use, and again the amount in grams, as same with all the colours. I also have to include any additional things that I use, such as Himalayan sea salt on the top, or some people use clay and things like that in their soap. The additional information you need for the fragrance oils, like the allergen information and the usage information, should be available on the supplier website where you buy them. Otherwise, you're going to have to email them and get that so that you can submit it for your assessment. The same is usually true for the colorants. If the supplier you use is UK and EU compliant, then they should have most of the information on their website and you won't have to email them. For ingredients like the Himalayan sea salt or activated charcoal, you might have to Google them to get the numbers that you need. Again, I'm a complete beginner at this, so definitely didn't know exactly what to provide the assessor. The assessor that I have been in touch with has been really helpful guiding me through it. I'm still in this part of the process, digging out numbers and safety sheets and emailing them to the assessor for review. If I'm missing anything or if I have the wrong amounts, for example I had too much fragrance oil, they would push back so that I can amend and resubmit my recipe. So far I've had to resubmit about 3 times to provide additional data, like the numbers for my colorants, the allergen information for my fragrance oils, and the confirmation that all my providers are EU and UK compliant. I will be making updates at each part of the process and hopefully won't leave you waiting too long between them. I imagine the next update will be receiving my completed assessment and tackling the portal. Then in future I'll be dealing with correct labelling and insurance. If there's any other areas you want me to cover or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below.